everybody, and welcome to The Enlightened Investor. I am your host, Dr. Joshua Luer from Bradley University, and that right there is Mr. Mike Mahoney, Mr. Fiduciary from Cypress Asset Management. And we look outside. There was actually a little flurry today, and welcome back. You were just down in Florida.
Yeah, it wasn't quite this cold down in Florida. Thank you.
And I'm going to call you
Mr. Professor.
Yeah, thank you. You're welcome. And I kind of call you Superman sometimes, and I think it's actually a good title. How many miles did you ride this?
We rode 200. It's a 280-mile bike ride. So I just got done. This is my third trip that I've done with this ride, but it was more rewarding this year because I was kind of celebrating my 60th birthday. And the conditions this year, they've done this ride for 10 years, and they said this was the toughest we've ever had. And it just seemed like we had headwinds or crosswinds or rain for 280 miles. So,
folks, you couldn't
quite an experience.
Yeah. I don't want to cut you off, but I'll tell you.
No, please do.
Mike sent me a video, and it was like just him, just downpouring rain, and him and his buddy are like under this little tent, just hanging on for dear life. So, we're glad to have you back.
What we do for excitement, right, and fitness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if today's...
Anyways, yes.
Yeah,
so inflation 3.0 today, yes.
Yeah, it's so exciting, right? We got a great show for you.
I'm very excited, yes, inflation 3.0.
So, I guess I read today it's going to be the most expensive Thanksgiving on record.
Interesting.
Turkey prices are up 25% roughly. Getting to your loved ones is going to be expensive.
Right.
So I think, as people take their holiday food in, they're going to say, wow, what's going on? So, we titled this the highest inflation in 31 years. And we kind of have 4 points that we want to cover today. We want to briefly go over why the most recent jobs report just came out this week. Why was it so bad? Number 2, what should we expect for inflation? Number 3 is who are the winners and losers in inflation? And then lastly, I'm going to turn over that guy. He's going to tell us what to do for our investments. And, we had a show about, what was it, August? We did this?
Yeah, it was actually our second episode.
And should we be worried? I think we titled that one.
But I thought we had another episode we talked about inflation. Or no, it was talking about national debt, yes, which kind of went together.
Up my alley, right?
Yes, right. So that's why I titled this 3.0.
Yeah. So let's get right into it, folks. So what I want to talk about is this most recent jobs report. And, some people are like, hey, should we trust this data that's coming out from the government? I'm not sure if you've heard that from your clients. And I would say, what they do, just so people know, is that they go out and interview 14,500 people and ask them, where do you buy your stuff? So you buy stuff at Costco or wherever. Schnucks. But some people buy their stuff at, Aldi's and Walmart, right? So so they get discounts, and they get like the Kroger's of the world, right? Or the higher end stuff. So then they go out into these locations and buy this baskets of goods and services. So we kind of get a good breakdown of this. So what happened was kind of a shocker. We knew that inflation was somewhat, if someone was kind of transitory, but it's going to be elevated longer than we thought. Right. And the most recent report came out at having nearly a 1% month-over-month increase in inflation, with a 6.2 total inflation for the year over year. So what a terrible time to be keeping your money in savings accounts, right, Mike?
Exactly.
Or
has been for quite a while.
Or even bonds, right? I mean, it's just a tough place to be. So there was a terrible jobs report. And let me show you in our first slide here, sort of like the inflation breakdown. If you take a look at this little table, you can see here that if you look at this, all items, relative importance is 100%. And the month-over-month change was about 0.9% or close to 1%. If you multiply that 0.9% by 12 months in a year, you get 10.8%. So on an annualized basis, that's a terrible report, 10.8% on an annualized basis. And we were talking kind of pre-show, Mike and I are about what are some things people can do. Well, one of the things they can do is make sure that they don't buy too big of a house, right? They won't have any money left over to come see you and save and invest. So the average American, the relative importance of their home on their budget is 41.2%, according to the government. And that includes your principal interest, your insurance, your property taxes, heating your home, like buying furnishing, all that stuff, right? And the month over month change was about 0.7%, so about 8.4% total. And I did that for a few other ones, Mike, and I think you can see here the one that stood out was transportation. So this is this would be like your insurance, your car, your car. How much are cars these days? 45,000
right.
bucks for a new one, right?
One of your Teslas is a lot more.
Yeah, I love Tesla, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So that's my big gamble. But
Yes, yeah.
so transportation is really killer at 28.8% year over year. So this is sort of the reason this has been such a bad report. And one thing I will say is that some people say like, hey, do you really believe these reports? So like what they're reporting is true, but we talked a little bit about underreporting before the show started. And over the years, we've seen that inflation methodology has really changed. In the 1980s, 1983, the government Bureau of Labor Statistics changed the way they calculate inflation. They took out home prices, which we all know has increased 20% last year, and they added what's called owner's equivalent rent. And owner's equivalent rent is just if someone were to rent your home today, how much would you think you could get a rent for? And, I think this has sort of lagged. The rents have lagged, but, Ryan told us about a friend of his that's down in Miami. The rent's going from $5,000 to $9,000 in January. So I think we're going to start to see some of these owner equivalent rents start to pick up. And the second slide I want to show you here is from John Williams. He's an old government statistician who has been running his own website for about 25, 30 years. And he looks at if we kept the same methodology of inflation, you can see here on the blue line that inflation would really be, if we kept like house prices and we didn't substitute goods away, we'd be something like 12, 13% inflation year over year versus our 6.2 in red. You can see there that those different dichotomies. So, any thoughts? So anyways, those are some thoughts on that. Let's talk about inflation expectations, Mike. So we talked a little bit this morning. Can anyone, obviously no one knows the future, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's
a lot of uncertainty.
Yes, a lot of uncertainty. And what can we say about inflation, Mike? It's noise for our investors.
Well, it's noise, but it's real and it's insidious. I think it's it's finally it's interesting how it's brought to the forefront and all over the media right now. But inflation's always here, whether it's low or high,
elevated, yeah.
But it's invisible for most people. And it's something they don't see as a risk, but long-term inflation is a risk, right? Because you can only eat what you keep, the real return versus the nominal return. But yeah.
Eat what you keep, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it. So anyways, I have another slide here for you.
That's not economic talk, is it? That's
yeah.
more
I think
subtle.
people are going to shut down this is economic talk. People are going to shut down.
We aren't going to show that slide, are we?
For 5 seconds, we'll show it, okay?
Yeah, I want them to see it just so they can go, wow.
What I want to show you guys is just take a look at the left-hand axis, which is CPI or inflation, where we go from CPI 1 to CPI 2. And that's just showing that elevated inflation pressure. How did we get to CPI 2? Well, you had fiscal monetary policy shift the aggregate demand curve out. Aggregate demand goes from 81, 82, 83. And then we've had aggregate supply shocks like, we send people home. We have this vaccine mandate where people are choosing whether to work or get vaccinated.
Right.
And so it's what a tough time to, we have supply chain shocks. And so oil prices are surging up to $80 a barrel. So the aggregate supply curve shifts from AS1 to AS2. And that's pushing up inflation as well. So, Mike, I just, when you were gone, we passed a new fiscal policy on infrastructure, which I'm happy about, but at the same time, that's going to stimulate aggregate demand. And we still have some issues with supply chain. I guess people who live out in California, look out there.
All those boats,
all the big boats, right? So there's definitely some issues. In the long run, we think that technology and things like that will help. But the question is what should the Fed do? And I think the other thing I want to say is that what are winners from losers of this inflation? And so this last slide here is why inflation is punitive. It eats your fiat currency. You said what did you say about you can only take what you eat, whatever?
Right.
And your assets needs to grow faster than inflation for you to survive. But right now, man, if anyone had a good idea to take out a loan, you're getting negative real interest rates. This is the greatest time in the world to borrow, right?
If you need to borrow, I guess that would be the case. I'm not going to be a proponent of telling people they need to go borrow money to invest. I think that's a little bit of a stretch for leverage, but
Yeah. Don't lever. We're not
right,
leverage
I'm not
around here.
mentioning that. Yeah,
But if you have I don't know, what a great time to take out a 30-year loan. I mean,
Right.
as long as you can
if
afford
you're
the
a
loan.
borrower right now, I
Jeez.
guess it's a good time, right? But then again, the house prices are elevated, so it's kind of probably all
Yeah.
coming out in the wash, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So the last thing is like,
It's tougher for savers right now, though,
oh, absolutely.
especially the conservative savers.
Yeah, the price of trying to find risk has gone up. Like
Correct.
it's
Right.
it's really challenging for people. I mean, my wife and I were just looking at how much money we have a little bit stored away in savings account for dry powder. Oh, it feels bad
Well, yeah,
holding
but
on to
speaking
that.
when we
doesn't
talk
it?
about rates, though, we're talking about inflation, but then we have to take that in the real world with investment rates for fixed income, right? And we kind of talked about this earlier. The 10-year rate, the Treasury, really hasn't moved much, even though we have this inflation. So
Incredible.
I guess it's a personal take on that, but is the Fed just artificially keeping rates low? I ask you that,
They are.
Professor.
That's called quantitative easing part 4. And they're starting to taper. It's going to take them 7 months. My expectations is that interest rates will go up after the taper in June of 2022. So you might see like interest rates kind of start to move up next year slowly. But I worry they can't raise interest rates enough to really combat this
The
problem.
inflation, right? So you're still going to have a negative return,
Yeah,
real return.
negative real return.
Right.
So, but over time, Mike, we always talk about long run investment horizons and kind of taking some of the noise out of investing.
Exactly, because we're not trying to prognosticate. We know what inflation is going to do. At least maybe the professor would like to add his opinion or something personally. But I mean, in the end, it's just part of the whole uncertainty and risk of investing. And the key is sticking with a well balanced plan based on your need, willingness, and ability to assume risk, and sticking with the program. And then they also, we talked about this a little bit too, and I see this a lot with people with their portfolios that come in, is they have fixed income holdings a lot of times that are exposed to long-term bonds. And you do not want to have long-term bonds if we do get in an inflationary environment and they do start to raise rates, because it'll act like an equity. It'll go down a lot.
Yep. That's a great takeaway from
Maybe
today's.
not permanently like an equity can, but it still can go down, 25, 30%.
Yep.
Which is not what you want out of your fixed income holdings.
No, that's right. Too
You
much
want to
risk.
stay more short term and stay investment grade. So
I 100% agree with that.
one of the things you need to do.
So, Mike,
Which alludes to your last question, probably to me, right? What do we do? I think we talked about that in version episode 2 and 4 or 5 or wherever that was. We talked about the national debt.
August, right?
And then we'll put the slide back up again that we shared from earliest dates. But to get a good positive real return, you're going to have to invest in equity assets. And most people that have a portfolio that's well planned already do. And I guess the people that really get impacted are the people that are extremely risk averse that don't have much equities. This is a tough environment for them. And I don't know if this is a point where you just rush out and buy equities. You need to really reevaluate your own situation. And I'm not even going to try and bring that up because everybody's situation is different.
Right. Yep.
Something you would have to look at.
Well, I think this is remember what is the worth of a financial advisor is actually sitting down and making a plan now. If you don't have one, and most people don't, they come in like your whole life you've been doing this, and you said one person came in with a plan.
Right, yes.
So why not, speak to an expert about this situation? Because it seems like a really, we haven't dealt with this for 31 years, this type of inflation, Mike. And people are maybe worried. So what's the...
Yeah, it'll be interesting for us to take a look 5 years from now and just see how this plays out, right?
Yeah.
Or 3 years, who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be 2 years, but
Yep. Who knows how it's going to end. Exactly. Well, folks, if you like today's content, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe. We're up to almost 30 subscribers. We're going to maybe have a celebration if we get to 50, right, guys? We're going to hit 50 by Christmas. How's that sound? Mike and I put some free materials up on our enlightened/investor.com website. We got recommended reading list. This guy's a big reader. I'm a big reader. We've got blog materials up there. So please feel free to reach out to us. Any other thoughts?
No, I'm looking forward to our next episode. We're going to get back to the second part of the DBP, design, build, protect, and we're going to get back to talk about building a portfolio based on your need, willingness, and ability to assume risk.
Yep.
Yeah.
That sounds good to me.
Great.
Well, this is the Light
be
Investor
back.
team. We're out. Take care.